So one of the greatest fears that I've ever had in my life is being exposed as ignorant, as dumb, as less than, or whatever the case is. And yet, if you're going to grow in your relationship with God, there are moments in your life where God comes to you and says, hey, this thing that you believed all along, maybe it isn't it. So what do you do in those moments? And how do you get past that? How do you grow from it? That and more coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by Logos. Learn more about the world's best Bible study software at logos.com/themove.
Welcome back to The Move, where we're vibing with the book 10 minutes at a time. I'm Jonathan and he's Justin.
And the next 10 minutes, we're going to be looking at John chapter 8, verses 12 to 30.
And with that being said, we got a question for you. Have you read it? If you haven't, it's in the comment section below. Go read it. And with that, we'll start with 10 minutes on the clock in 3, 2, 1. So, part 2, we're still in John 8, yep. Right? Mm-hmm. And yeah, man, that concluding sort of idea that we're so enamored, or not enamored, I think we're so shaped and disciplined, we're so entangled. That's the word. We're so entangled with the lie, right? That the God of this world has blinded us with, that there's only finite resourcing, and that if you say this thing and it's not what I knew or to be true, or I feel exposed, that then I receive it as some sort of condemnation, and right?
Yeah, and I think that this is exactly what the religious leaders here are experiencing. They have always believed that life is defined by these parameters, that this is the best way to live life. And Jesus is coming along and saying, hey, there's this different way to do it. Yeah. I'm actually the way to do it. Like, this is the gospel. This is the message I'm giving to you. And it's really hard to be humble enough to receive something different sometimes.
Particularly because the way he's coming is he's saying, listen, that which is the best way to live, or not even the best way to live, that which is the truth about life, right?
Yeah, it's not just one of many ways. That's pretty good.
Yeah, this is the truth about life. I've come to reveal it. And to be quite frank, you've had it in your oracles that God gave to you, but you haven't correctly understood it. Here, let me explain it to you.
Yeah, we were talking about this idea, like, you know, you've done the whole PhD kind of experience. You know, I haven't quite done all that, but, you know, I'm no slub. Yeah. I read books every once in a while.
You read books?
I do.
And the real ones, not just the ones on screens?
I've been doing more of the screen ones lately.
Trying to help you out.
You know, this idea is that, you know, we pride ourselves in being able to know things. And we think that God is found in the complexities.
Yeah.
And the reality is that he's not. I mean, he may be, but he's actually more clearly found in the simple things.
Simple. And then that thinking that having an amount of knowledge is what then justifies your position. It's the logical fallacy. I think it's the fallacy of authority, right?
The appeal to authority.
The appeal to authority. There it is. Thank you. Right. So even right there, you would think, well, I'm the PhD, so I should have the term. You don't. You give it to me, right?
No PhD.
Yeah, but I why would I feel some sort of certain way about that? Like, you don't, right? But the religious leaders have this appeal to authority, and to be fair, they have seen their nation, or they've read about their nation, and they're experiencing their nation under a sort of subjugation, right, bondage. By the Rome bondage.
And it's oftentimes tied to their rejection of what God has told them.
Yeah, so now they're doubling down, right? Now they're like, you've ever had that situation, like with somebody, for instance, that you might be trying. Okay, I'll just be real frank. So, if you guys haven't noticed, I'm a black man.
What?
Yeah, I don't see color. Right. Right.
And if you haven't noticed, I am not.
Yeah.
Putting all the cards on the table.
Putting it all on the table. And I've had interactions where, especially around the race relations, that I've had interactions where you illuminate somebody on something, and as you're illuminating them on something,
it's tough.
You're calling them out on a past behavior, or they feel they're being called out because what you're illuminating is indicting them. Yeah. And instead of recognizing what's logically true or following, right?
We want to argue so that we don't feel guilty.
Yeah, so something like this, something as simple as this, you can say, it's fair to say that the injustices of the past have an effect on the inequalities of today. Right? Like if there's something severely unjust in the past, it might actually play out in inequality. Like that seems to pretty on its face. Like, yeah, I think we can see that, right?
Yeah.
But no, you've had those experiences where you double down. People are like, no, right?
Yeah, it's funny because I know exactly what you're referring to, the specific thing that you're referring to, and I've been seeing it in my feed like last month, quite heavy.
Yeah. So in that moment where you double down in the face of, and I've done it too, right? Where I've been exposed and I double down, right? And so I feel like that's part of what's happening here. And it's so interesting to me that Jesus does not waver or move in who he is, even if it's making them uncomfortable. If not, he continues to walk the road of revealing light and not being moved by the darkness that they're under.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because like this is even in this gospel alone, this is like the second or third time he's like, guys, I'm it. This is the only way. I'm the door. I'm the way, the truth. I'm the light. Like he's going through this entire thing, and still, no. I don't think so. I don't think that's who you are. Or like, how do you? Who gives you the authority to say such thing, Jesus?
And he knows that he's facing a threat by being this way, and yet he's solid. So we see here, this line really caught me, Justin. So the Jews said, verse 22. Oh, no, verse 21. So he said to them, I'm going away. You will seek me and you will die in your sin. Where I am going, you cannot come.
And it's interesting what part of the statement they focus on, right? So the Jews say, will he kill himself? Since he says, where am I going? You cannot come.
Yeah.
They're saying, oh, you're going somewhere. They totally missed like the core of what he actually said.
You will die in your sin if, right, you don't receive me. You can't come where I am actually headed to, because, and then he goes on to explain, you are from below, I am from above. You are of this world, I am not of this world. I told you that you would die in your sins, for unless you believe that I am he, you will die in your sins.
And again, who are you? What are you saying? He's like, listen, I've been telling you this thing from the beginning.
That's right. I have a lot to say to you and much to actually judge, but he who sent me is true. And I declare to the world what I have heard from him. They don't understand. And they begin to speak. But they don't understand that he was speaking to them about the Father. Jesus says to them, when you've lifted up the Son of Man, then you will know that I am he, and that I do nothing of my own authority, but speak just as the Father taught me. It's interesting. This is where the setup is, where Jesus is saying, I do what the Father has told me to do. Right? And we talked about this earlier this season. I do nothing outside of what the Father tells me to do. And if you knew my Father, you would know who I am. So that leads to this conclusion of that they don't actually have a knowledge of the very God that they're claiming to know or to be, right? And then as the passage continues, there's this idea introduced that, well, actually, the reason you don't know is because your knowledge comes from your Father, right? That presses on me because when I've been confronted with gospel and when I've been confronted with, say, things I didn't know and I thought I knew, I then ask two questions. Like, one, what the heck? I thought I knew that. Right? And then if somebody actually had taught me this false information that I thought I knew, I thought I could trust that person.
Right.
And I actually asked that question of, wait, who am I listening to? If I'm being illuminated that I've been ignorant, like, who have I been listening to? And I know that happened for me, like, say, at conversion, when I was converted. Like, who have I? Like you said, I almost have a PhD in this stuff, and I don't know what I'm talking about. Like, who have I been listening to? Who have I been paying attention to?
Yeah. And this is the beauty of living in spirit. I was having this conversation with a church member who you would know if I said the name on camera, and he was talking about this particular moment in his life that he's struggling with. There's certain things that he feels like God's called him to. He's not being able to do it, yada, yada. So Christian and I, we end up like ministering to him and speaking with him for for quite some time. And then at the end of it, he's like, man, this is why I go to church. It's like I'll struggle for a whole week with all this stuff, and I'll come here and then just in one conversation, you'll set me right. And this is why I come to church. And I just simply told him, like, you know what the beautiful thing is, though? Is that you actually don't need us to have that experience. Yeah. Like, you could just go to Father for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to listen to me.
Yeah.
You could listen to the Father.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, what was it that, I guess it's the thing of like trying to name what sin is, because ultimately, what was it that made them so afraid of what Jesus was proposing? I mean, what is it that made Adam afraid to hide in the garden when God came looking? Like, what is it that makes me fearful when somebody asks me a question and I don't know, but I'm supposed to know, right? Like, what's that lie that I've so deeply identified with? Man,
we're gonna do some overtime.
A little bit of overtime, but what's that lie I've so deeply identified with that I feel is so threatened? Because at the end of the day, when you finally get taught the truth or you're illuminated, you're a better person for it.
You're just grateful.
You're grateful, right? Like, well, I mean, why double down on the lie so hard, you know? Because this feeling that we're going to be exposed and seen for less than what we are, right? Like, it's shame. It's afraid of vulnerability. And on this side of gospel now, I just went like, man, why was I so willfully, at least for me, right? I don't speak for anybody else, but why? It seemed like I was so willfully ignorant for so long, right? And I don't know if that lands for you. I don't know if that lands for y'all. I don't know where y'all are at in light of the conversation that Justin and I are having. But I would strongly encourage you, exactly what Justin said. If any of what we've talked about the last 2 episodes resonates, like, there is someone you can go to that illuminates you and will not judge. Right? Have you ever felt that sense of shame or nakedness, fearful? I promise you, there's somebody who is the light of the world that you can open up this book, right? You can read this and say, Father, reveal to me who you say I am, and he will without judgment. He will. And yeah.
There you go.
We'll see you in the next 10.
Hey movers, I recently got to travel to the Logos headquarters and ended up recording several tutorials on how you and I can get more from our Bible study using Logos. To see the entire playlist of videos, visit logos.com/themove and get 10% off any Logos 8 product you want. logos.com/themove.